Good afternoon and welcome to our last Luxembourg PVC stories before the summer break. Today we are with Vanessa Camilleri. She is conducting officer and head of office at Partners Group Luxembourg. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, Stefan, for having me.
It's really a pleasure, and I think we'll have a great session today. What can you tell us about Partners Group? Who, when, and how did the whole adventure start?
That's a loaded question. I'll give you a few figures, right? So $100 billion AUM, $145 billion invested since 1996, 1,500 employees, 1,000 institutional clients, 200 million underlying client beneficiaries, and 250,000 employees within our portfolio companies. Now, I didn't want to inundate you with figures nor impress you. They're certainly impressive, but what did I want to convey about Partners Group? I think those figures for me actually mean commitment, hard work, but also responsibility towards our clients, as well as the importance of our stakeholders across the board, be it the employees within our portfolio companies or the shareholders. Now, in terms of history, how did the journey start? It started in 1996, so it's a relatively young firm, right? A successful young firm. Started in 1996 by three gentlemen, so the three founding partners, Urs Wittelsbach, Marcel Erni, and Alfred Gruntner. Inspirational people still holding positions within the firm nowadays. So that was 1996. Fast forward to 2006 in March, when we floated the company on the Swiss Stock Exchange. And then in terms of milestones, as we went along, we grew, we opened offices. In 2016, we of course celebrated our 20th anniversary. We also celebrated the kickoff of the building of our campus in Denver. In 2019, we officially opened that, becoming the 20th office within Partners Group. And then closer to today, we're also part of this Swiss index, right, of SMI. So that's, in essence, the trajectory in short, if I could say that.
Wow, I have to say, this is really an impressive track record. And the industry loves really such success stories, and certainly also the industry. So let's continue now with the main activity and also core philosophy of Partners Group.
Sure. Look, simply put, I can say we're a leading global private markets firm, truly dedicated to private markets. I think with conviction, we believe in entrepreneurial governance, and we really work with an industrial mindset. So big words, but what do those actually mean? Entrepreneurial governance is actually the private markets governance. You might be familiar with a white paper which Stefan Meister, our chair, had published a few years back on entrepreneurial governance. It's about the fact that we roll up our sleeves and work, if you like, if I could translate it that way. But it is about steering away from Wall Street short-termism, if that's a word, which perhaps I invented or not. I think it's in the white paper, so I appropriated it. It's about actually not prioritizing purely controls, independence, downside protection, but also there should be boards and directors on boards of companies which focus and prioritize business strategy, but also, very importantly, implement that business strategy, right? That's actually putting the talent at work to transform businesses and to create value. So that's entrepreneurial governance. With respect to industrial mindset, same leitmotif, right? Again, this is not Wall Street. This is not looking at portfolio companies from afar, just thinking with a short-sighted viewpoint. This is actually with the idea of holding those assets, transforming those businesses and changing them into market leaders. So that's actually our underlying core philosophy. There's, of course, tenets behind that, three of them being transformational investing, being bespoke solutions, and also being stakeholder impact. But I could also elaborate about that further on, should you want me to.
Wow, what an essence and really robust values. Which sectors in particular are you following and investing in? Are there any recent and specific trends you would like to mention?
As you probably know, right, I speak of private markets because we transcend all the asset classes. So be it private equity, debt, infrastructure, real estate. And that's very much in line with our relative value approach. It's an approach, right, which adapts to the market conditions, which can impact the attractiveness or not of an asset. In essence, I would say that that is the outlook which we have on the asset classes. Then perhaps I can touch upon the points I mentioned before. So transformational investing. What do I mean by that? What does Partners Group mean by transformational investing? It's actually looking at capitalizing strong returns, I would say. It's seeking and getting strong returns through the capitalization of thematic trends, right? Growth trends. And by thematic growth trends, I would mean, for example, digitization. With respect to bespoke solutions, we actually do actively manage risk and portfolio management for our clients. And that we also do through individualized client structures, so tailored specifically for clients, which of course means alignment with our clients constantly. And then stakeholder impact, I think, is the underlying theme of all of this, whereby we seek to achieve sustainable returns, of course, with a positive, long-lasting impact. So in essence, as you see, right, it is value creation and long-term vision which actually drive us.
And the Partners Group setup, how does it look like globally? How many offices, where are those, and how many people do work for your group?
Right. It looks different to when I joined in 2006. So when I joined, we were 200 employees, more or less. As I said before, now we're 1,500 and more, actually. We have 20 offices around the globe, so quite a global footprint. We have major offices in Switzerland, London, Singapore, Manila, Denver, of course, but also important offices like Luxembourg, indeed. So that's how the setup actually looks. And I think it's important to have investment professionals and professionals across the services and also the client solutions team across the board in order to tap into assets and also to establish relationships with clients.
You mentioned Luxembourg, and that's also the office you are leading. What's the operating model here locally, and your team, they are composed of what kinds of profiles?
Sure, I can certainly give you an insight of Luxembourg. So I arrived in Luxembourg in 2010. We were an office of 3 persons at the time. We established, so the history of Luxembourg, we established our office in 2008, but our relationship with the country started before that. So already in 2005, we established CCARs in Luxembourg, actually funds focusing on debt investments. Throughout the years, we've held a PSF license, and fast forward to 2019, we actually became the AFM of Partners Group on the ground, which means that we have conducting officers on the ground and another fellow 5 conducting officers with myself. And we actually have risk management and valuation teams on the ground. And this is normal or typical, I would say. With such setups, then we also have portfolio management delegated to Switzerland. The team here, a fantastic team of 30 persons on the ground. We have valuation team members, we have risk team members, compliance, operations, oversight, SPV, operations team, you name it. I certainly don't want to miss anyone, but it's a fantastic team of 30. So it's great to see actually that from 3, nowadays we grew up into 30.
And with such an efficient configuration, what is your ESG policy and strategy? How active are you?
How Active are we? So we've been always very active on ESG. I think we identified ESG as a core topic a long time ago. We were signatories of the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investing as of 2008. Along the years, we supported and partook a number of initiatives, being the Disclosure Project or the Task Force on Climate Financial Disclosure. You see our corporate sustainable reports published yearly. You also see our KPI reporting at portfolio company level per asset class on ESG. So I would say we're very active. Why are we very active? Purely because we believe that through ESG we can create value. And I'll also give you a couple of examples, if I may. So one of our portfolio companies, KinderCare, it's a collection of childcare centers in the US. And in essence, about 100 centers have actually switched to LED lighting, and over 200 centers have switched to centralized energy management systems, which meant that the latter 200 centers saved energy by 10%, whereas those which switched to LEDs saved energy by 60%, which translates into 1.5 million EBITDA for KinderCare between 2018 and 2020. That's the E part, right, of the ESG formula. Perhaps an example on the social side, Civica, another portfolio company in the UK, a provider of digital solutions, but also outsourcing services. This company is stellar, right? In terms of being an inclusive workplace, they are actually ranked 73rd out of 1,500 companies by the Financial Times for being a great inclusive workplace. And there is something to learn, and something which we learned and we adopted. So if you look at Civica, they have historically had collaborations with universities, with schools. They have mentorship programs. They also had unconscious bias training across the board, something which we also did at Partners Group. I also did the training myself. I have to say, it was extremely insightful. So there you go. That's ESG translated into practice. Yes, we're very active, but we're active not because it's the flavor of the month, but because we really believe in it.
Fantastic. I mean, we certainly like those concrete examples and the pragmatic steps that you can implement for such companies and portfolio companies. You have really a strong knowledge of the Luxembourg ecosystem and infrastructure. Are there elements Luxembourg could also work on in the future in order to become even better in the field?
Well, look, I think the Luxembourg ecosystem has been in the making for decades now, right? So it is a sophisticated ecosystem which factors so many angles of the finance industry. If personally I had to give two suggestions, my two takes would be digitization, and it needs to happen fast. I think COVID was amplified the trend, right? But the trend, I think, should be harnessed and harnessed really fast. And the second one, and I know that this has been a core focus also for the LPA, which I support, is talent, right? Is attracting talent to the country and maintaining it. I think we're making progress, but probably that's core, that's a key part of the future success of this country. So those would be my two personal suggestions, if I can.
We also highly appreciate those because, for example, for the digitalization, we will certainly focus with our Insights Conference this year in October on such themes. And certainly for the talent and talent attraction, we have the LPA Academy. We are doing some partnerships with also other stakeholders, and also will host our second job fair in October. So let's do that together, and we'd be very happy also to count on you for those tasks. Fantastic. Just a quick reminder for our audience, for those who do not know us yet, and certainly this show, you can certainly ask your questions now via the Q&A button or the chat function. So don't hesitate. Vanessa is still with us for the next minutes, and we'll also go now for the more personal parts of this journey. So Vanessa, what did you study, where, and how did you start your career?
So I studied law, as many people, I reckon, right? I studied law in Malta, and then my master's I did in Bruges, Collège d'Europe, on European Union law. how did I start my career? It actually didn't start in private markets. It started in the diplomatic corps in my home country. I was responsible for European Union commercial policy and the World Trade Organization matters. And then I moved to Guernsey for love, but also I discovered Guernsey to be a beautiful country once I moved there. And actually that's how I started working with Partners Group in 2006, as I said, in the legal and transaction services team.
Wow, what a journey from public to private, and also Guernsey. Yes, that's also an interesting place. And we know lots of good houses who had those structures and afterwards also evolved further with potentially also Luxembourg flagships. And concerning the values, and certainly you personally appreciate and respect, any you would like to share?
Well, it's difficult to put them in an order. So let's assume that I attribute equal importance to them. I'd say integrity, kindness, empathy, and resilience. Those would be the values which I'd like to have myself, but I truly appreciate in others, particularly when they excel at them.
And we mentioned before talent together. What's the advice you would like to give to such young talents? For example, joining PG or simply working for the industry?
Well, what would I actually suggest? My advice would be learn. I think knowledge is, to me, is invaluable, right? So learn, absorb, also seize the opportunity when they come along. Think of contribution first, and think of team. I think if you, in any job you go into, be it private markets or elsewhere, I think the results of a team are actually better always than the result of an individual. And then with respect to private markets, I think also see the purpose and the value in it, in the sense that when you asked me before, and I should have mentioned, is what is our core philosophy. And what I like about Partners Group is that what we do with passion, and whatever one does has to be done with purpose. So in essence, if I had to give an example with myself, I think the fact that there are how many underlying client beneficiaries, which I mentioned, which I can contribute positively to, that gives me purpose. So I guess the overarching advice I would give is do something which you enjoy. You do it with passion, and you actually do something which gives you purpose in life.
Again, fabulous values. I mean, looking for purpose, a sense, I mean, for the company or in life, and then certainly trying to implement that on a day-to-day basis with clients and stakeholders. Wow. In this context, any specific leader or person that inspired you or motivated you to go down that path or to share such values?
I think I was lucky to have encountered in my life a number of persons who have positively influenced me. I mentioned before kindness and integrity. I think on a very personal level, since we're on personal questions, I think I see my mother as the epitome of kindness, right? My father as the epitome of integrity. And then I've had the sheer luck in my 15 years at Partners Group to have encountered so many people who actually not only have inspired me, but also spent the time to coach me. So in essence, right, people who have taught me about investments, people who have taught me about how to lead a team, people who have taught me both the technical skills, but also the soft skills. So I really cannot really name one, but I think I've had many, which I can thank for all of this.
A nice life full of interesting encounters and also sharing, again, values. Now, on a very, very personal side, which great books or podcasts, music, or whatever other hobby you have, you would like to recommend to our audience?
So I always remember mostly vividly the latest books I would have read, right? And one book I read, I don't know if you know this, is On Life, We're Briefly Gorgeous. And it's about the relationship between parent and child set against the Vietnam War. But what I particularly liked more than the storyline, if that is a thing, is the prose, or the use of the prose, the beautiful play of vocabulary. The author is actually first and foremost a poet, right? So this is the first book which he wrote, and I found the grasp of the English language, of the vocabulary, fascinating. So that's one book. The other book is Burnt Sugar, which I'm reading right now. Again, relationship between persons. As you can see, I probably like understanding relationship between persons. So that's also a good one. Now, podcast. I liked Michelle Obama's podcast a lot because not only was it very lively, the series, right, and very upbeat, but at the same time it had very important topics, Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, but also marriage and friendship. And I think it was well done, well put, and very, very insightful. As to music, I might disappoint you. I don't think I'm loyal to any genre, to be honest. So what can I say? I like music which, given that I'm from Malta, which reminds me of the sound of the waves and the sun. So anything in that direction, or it could also be Andrea Bocelli or Jan Tiersen. So, you know, I'm not really loyal to any genre, but anything which puts me in a good mood.
Always very curious. And we have our audience with one attendee who asked us a question. As a key player in the private markets, are you already ready for the SFDR2 and ESG reporting on the risk side?
Yes, I think, look, having been active on ESG and having also been used to reporting in the past, I think we found ourselves in a good place to be able to implement the SFDR requirements. So I would say, yes, of course, it entails work and it entails implementation. But since we've had ESG at the forefront of our minds for a long time, I think we're well placed to adhere to the requirements.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Vanessa, for being with us today, for sharing so many insights, for really also this holistic view of your group and your personal experiences. That's always very helpful to inspire also the next generation. And the audience also, thanks for being here today. And we'll just finish here quickly with then the events that are coming up. So tomorrow, our newly launched AIF legal group will work on the cross-border fund directive. We'll certainly have our summer party of the LPA, the first one since the start of the pandemic. It's fully booked. And also next week, we will focus on the wealth management angle of doing portfolio construction. So thanks again for joining us and see you very soon again.